So we're out back where the Wayne's got the track laid, and tell us about it, Wayne.
Well, the track is going to come out of the engine house there, and it goes down there, and around the corner will be a switch. And the main line, we're going to lay half a mile of rail, and it'll go in front of this building, and it'll go all the way around the house in a half-mile loop and come back this way. So last summer we had an opportunity to purchase this semaphore from an old museum that had gone out of business, and we got it back here and we did a complete restoration of it. And you'll notice it's got a ladder 35 feet up to the top, and we were able to obtain the glass lenses out of California, and we restored it. We got a set of drawings from the museum up in Ottawa, the Canadian Industrial Museum up in Ottawa, and they had on file the drawings from the Grand Trunk Railway. So we were able to get the dimensions and how to paint the blade that's on it. And we completely restored it to operating condition, and it's going to indicate whether the switch is open or closed when you come out of the engine house, and you'll be able to see it from the locomotive. So you have to appreciate what part this played in history, because these were designed starting in the 1870s, the semaphore. So the idea of the semaphore is they would have one in front of each railway station. So if the station master wanted the incoming train to stop, he would position the semaphore signal so it was at right angle, so the locomotive engineer, quarter of a mile down the track, could see whether he was to stop. If they had no freight or no passengers and no reason to stop there, the station master would put it at 45 degrees, which means he could go past the station but at a predetermined reduced speed. And then if it was vertical, he could go through the station at the regular speed and he didn't have to stop. Now that's all well and good in the daytime when you can see it. Now in 1870 they hadn't invented the electric light or not, so that's why that ladder is on the side. So as soon as dusk started to come, the station master would would light his kerosene lantern, and it was the same lanterns that you used on the switch stands. They had a square hole in it. So he'd light his lantern in the station house. He had a belt. He'd clip the lantern on the belt, and he would crawl 35 feet up the ladder, take yesterday's lantern off, and put today's lantern on, all the while holding on with one hand. And so then at nighttime, if you had a green light showing, you could go through at high speed. If you had an amber light showing, you could go through at a reduced speed. If you had a red light showing, you had to come to a stop and take on passengers or freight. So now you can imagine, it's 1870 out in Brandon, Manitoba in January in a snowstorm with it 30 below zero, that poor station master crawling up that ladder to put that lantern on the top.
And no standoff.
No.
There should be a standoff up there.
Nope, but that's the way they did it. So one of the other things that we acquired just a little over a year ago was this locomotive crane. Now there's only three, at least to the best of my knowledge, we only have about 3 locomotive cranes left in Canada, and this is one of them. And it was built in 1913 and purchased by the Abitibi Pulp and Paper Mill for their Iroquois Falls pulp mill up in Iroquois Falls. And it didn't have a hook block on it, it had a clamshell bucket. And they used it from 1913 to 1960 when they replaced it with a mobile crane, but they used it for unloading the coal for the powerhouse, and they used it for unloading the pulpwood on the rail cars to bring it into the pulp mill where they made paper. So this is in operating condition, and it's got outriggers on it, which you pull out, and it's got the capacity plate on it. It'll lift 30 tons if the outriggers are out, and it'll tell you the radius from how far out it'll lift the 30 tons up, and of course the further out you get, the lower the tonnage that it can lift. And it's got it can go up and down the track, and it can slew and turn, and the boom can go up and down, and of course the hook block can go up and down, and it's got lights on it for working at night. So this was donated to us by the Earlton Steam Club. Now this was assembled in 1913 and had been never taken apart. So I made arrangements with Mammoth Crane to meet up there, and they looked at it and they said, oh, we need two cranes to take it apart, and so on and so forth. So at the appointed time we went up there to take this thing apart. The thing weighs 81.25 tons. The boom is 5 tons, and the rest of it is split between the upper part with the boiler in it and the steam engines and the counterweight on the back, and then the lower car is all filled with foundry scrap metal to bring the weight up. So the upper part, the cab, is held onto the lower part. There's a 8-inch shaft that goes down. The 8-inch shaft is threaded on the bottom, and in the middle of the 8-inch shaft is hollow with an 1.5-inch shaft going down in the middle of it, and that 1.5-inch shaft drives the gears to go back and forth on the railway line. And then that 1.5-inch shaft is hollow because it's got steam brakes, so that hollow part is the steam line. So that big 8-inch shaft, which contains the smaller shaft and the steam line, it is threaded on with the biggest hex head nut you can imagine, and it's 12 inches across the flats. The nut is 5.5 inches thick, weighs 175 pounds, and got about 8 threads to the inch, and of course it's up underneath, so you can't use a wrench to unbolt it, because if you had a wrench 12 inches wide to go across, it'd take 3 men and a boy
to lift it. Never mind get it up in there and turn it. So what they did was they beveled the nut, and they put in at 45 degrees, and then they put a spud hole in there. So you put a little pin in the hole on each face, and you took a hammer and you drove it with a hammer. So we had everything but the kitchen sink in the truck to take this thing apart. So I put a 20-ton jack against a pin that we put in to match the hole, jacked it up, the thing wouldn't move. Because remember, this was put together in 1913, never been apart. So the guy who was working up with, I'll fix that. So he went back to his shop and he machined up a hardened steel bolt that we put in the hole with just like almost an interference fit. And then he had a 120-ton hydraulic power pack, and he had a great big jack, and we put that thing up in there, and we had her up to 25 tons. All of a sudden she moved. Took the jack out, and you could unthread it by hand. So then, of course, we had to put the dang thing back together again, 2 cranes to put it back together again. It came down on 3 trucks, and it was quite an event. But anyways, it's all operational other than a few minor boiler repairs. But what we did when we arrived up there, we rented an air compressor, put it on the boiler, and put lots of oil on the steam cylinder and on the rods, and we're able to lower the boom down, wind up the cable. Likewise, when we put her back together again, once we had the boom on, we're able to lift it up and re-reeve all the cable with compressed air. So, and of course we had to lay a track panel and to be able to get that. But anyways, it's home. It's preserved. It's home.
It's preserved. Yeah. So down the far end,
little over a year ago, we were able to purchase 5,000 feet of rail with a half-mile of track, and it had a switch on it, but it was all standard gauge. So we've had to lay the switch out here, and we've had to re-gauge it from 4 foot 8.5 inches down to 36-inch gauge. So we decided we'd do this out here in the yard rather than down in the middle of the bush where we've got tools and all the rest to work on it. So we've got that pretty well all set up now, so in the springtime we'll go assemble it down in the switch and we'll complete our line down there. Now where you're flush in the ground here, or on road crossings, or where the railway's going to come across here, we don't want to use wood ties on there, because you'd end up try to change a tie like over there with the rails underneath there. To change a tie under there, it'll be a hell of a job. So we made concrete ties. So we made jigs up and reinforcing rod and threaded rods. So these are some of the ties that we made where for the road crossings and where it's going to be flush with the ground. And then we use a flange channel, which is some 30-pound rail that was donated to us. And so we can be flush in certain areas, and when we go across roads we'll be flush, and we'll use the concrete ties underneath, so there'll be no maintenance in the future. Any other questions?
No, but I'm kind of running out of battery here, Wayne.
Oh, okay.
And
well, then we better
I just want to take a minute and thank Wayne for spending the day with us up there at the Ontario Steam Heritage Museum. It was very interesting, and it's too bad my battery went dead, and I know Wayne's battery wasn't dead yet. He's got lots more to tell, and they have open houses up there, and if you get the chance to go, it would be a good idea to go up there, meet Wayne, see all the steam traction engines that he has, and the stationary engines, and he's building that railroad track. It's going to be a real step back in time. Anyway, I just wanted to thank the people up there at the museum for taking the time, and also wanted to thank Dave Bond. Without Dave Bond, I'd have never got there. Dave, he owns Pro Mechanical in Dresden, and he also does a little work up at the museum. So thanks, Dave, and thanks for watching the video, and we'll catch you on the next one.